Okay, so I can combine stuff on the top. I only have a b squared. I only have a minus 2b. But I do have two numbers, this one and this one. 6 minus 14 minus 8. And then I'm going to keep it over b squared minus 3b minus 10. I know this is tempting to do, but you can't do that. You have to factor. Both of these are what kind of factoring?
Simple.
Simple. So let's see here. 2 sets of parentheses on top. B and B. What numbers multiply to 8 but can give you 2?
Positive 4 and negative
4 and 2. Now let's see. We have to subtract those to get 2, but what's the sign in front of the 2?
Negative.
A negative. So the bigger number needs the negative. So it's going to be b minus 4, b plus 2. Then in the denominator, I have simple factoring. So again, I'm going to make my 2 sets. B and B. And what numbers multiply to 10 but give you 3?
2 times 5 is
5 and 2.
Negative and positive.
They've got to be different signs because we're subtracting them. Again, the bigger number needs the negative. And
Cancel
what's our
out.
expression?
The v plus 2.
So how did you know for the bottom part of it, the b squared minus 3b minus 10, that you factored just following the top, or because it turned out to be simple?
Good question. I didn't know if this could factor yet. I tried it and it worked. Sometimes you might not be able to factor it.
Okay.
And then you know you can't go any further.
Okay.
Sometimes you would have something like this and say that was a 7. If the 8 was a 7, then you couldn't go any further because you can't factor it. But you have to try and at least see if it works. And if it does, things might cancel for you.
Because your goal is you want to reduce it as much
As far as you can.
Okay.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. The ones that look like this in your homework, number 9, it looks like number 49 and 51. It's the very last two problems you have to do. So it's very similar to mine. Okay. Now it says we're done on 7-1, but there's an extra section we have to do. I only made 4 problems in homework. I don't know why. It was in my original syllabus on the computer, but then when I was looking at my hard copy, it wasn't there. Don't know why. So what we're going to do, we're adding section 7.6. And let me show you what the homework's going to be so you know exactly what it is. I've already typed it up so it's on there. In 7.6, it's on page 698. And all I need you to do is 1 through 7 off. It's a very, very short assignment.
1, 3, 5, 7.
Yep. That's all we have to do. But I'm going to give you some practice problems so you can see what they look like. All right. You're going to be excited when you see this. 3x over 4 minus 1x over 3 equals 5 over 6. I told you when we were doing the equation chapter, eventually we're going to solve equations with fractions in them, and here it is. But I have a nice little way of doing it. There are 2 different ways you could do this problem. My way, it's hard to convince people why it works. But the longer way, there are like 8 extra steps you have to do. So if you do not like my quick, short way, you can come up and I'll show you the long way afterwards. Out of all my semesters, I've only had 2 people do it the long way, and that's just how they understood it. So it's not like people haven't done it, it's just their preference on how does it make sense to them.
Just believe.
Just believe. Okay, the goal is, just like in chapter 3, the goal is get the variable alone.
Why are we always dealing with variables?
It's algebra. Get the variable alone by clearing the fractions. I'm going to make the fractions go away for you. You don't have to worry about them.
You
change it anyway.
If you took Dev 1, I know the ones that have had me, we did these problems. But if you didn't take Dev 1, then it's a whole new world for you. The first step is to think of the common denominator. What is the common denominator out of all three fractions? What number can they all go into? 12. You could choose 24, you could choose 36, but it's better to choose the smallest number they can all go into. If you know 12 works, what you're going to do is put 12 and a little dot next to each fraction. 12 and a little dot. Because you're showing you're multiplying. 12 and a little dot. You're going to put it next to each of the fractions. Okay, the way you clear a fraction. Think of when you did your homework in this last chapter. If I had this, 18 times, let's say, 5/6. Let's just say, let's go back to the basics. If I had multiplication, do you remember what your first step would be?
Put a 118.
Okay, imagine there's a 1 here. Do you see anything you could cross cancel?
Yes, that is
18/6.
Okay, 6 goes in there once,
5 into 3.
and goes in there 3, and then didn't you just multiply the 3 and the 5 together?
Yes.
Okay, same thing with this kind of a problem. You can think of this as over 1 if you want to put it over 1, that's fine. I could cross cancel the 4 and the 12. 4 goes into 12 how many times? 3 times. And then you're going to multiply. 3 times 3x would give you what? 9. And that's your new term. No fraction, because there's nothing left in the denominator. I'll show you the next one. Minus. 3 goes into 12 how many times?
4.
4. And then 4 times 1x is just 4x. That's your second new term. Bring down your equals. Okay, cross-canceling here. 6 goes into 12 how many times? 2. And 5 times 2? 10. Now look at that equation. Doesn't that look so much easier to solve than what you originally had? All the the denominators are gone because you chose a common denominator to wipe them out. So thinking back to chapter 3, is there anything we can simplify?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
9x minus 5.
Okay. I can combine 9x minus 4x. That's just going to give me 5x equals 10. And then what would be your last step?
Divide by 5.
Divide by 5.
X equals
So you wouldn't have to do that to 0?
Nope, because there's no x squareds. You only do that if it's an x squared. So x equals 2. So that's the fun fact one. The other way is complicated.
2.
Right?
How will you call this section though?
Oh, we could call it solving fraction equations. Solving fraction equations. Okay, let's try it on. Again, it's just trying to get familiar with the whole clearing the fractions up. That's the only new part. All right, let's try y over 3 minus 1 over 4 equals 5y over 12 plus 1 over 6. A lot of the times the common denominator can be 12 because numbers can go into 12. There are a lot of different options. So then write it. What is your common denominator there? What number can they all go into? They can all go into 12 again. So I'm going to put 12 times next to each of them. Hmm. 12 times next to each of them. All right, let's go fraction by fraction again. 3 goes into 12 how many times? 4. And then multiply 4 times y is just 4y. minus. 4 goes into 12
3.
3 times. 3 times 1 is 3. Bring down your equals. Okay, this one, let's think about it. 12 goes into 12 one time,
1 times 5 is
and
1.
1 times 5y is 5y. Plus 6 goes into 12
2 times.
2 times. 2
5.
times 1. Now the fractions are gone. And then this is just a review, just on how to solve equations.
Got a problem.
We have a problem.
Yeah, I gotta move negative y.
That's okay, that means you have to go a little further. We have to get our y's on the same side, numbers on the other side. I'm going to do it just like I did it in chapter 3. I'm going to move my letters to the left. So I'm going to subtract 5y here. Subtract 5y here. You might be going the other way, that's fine. 4y minus 5y would give you what?
Negative 1y.
Negative 1y. Bring down my minus 3. Bring down my equals. This is now gone. And you still have a 2. If you need to box this in like we did in chapter 3, you can do that. Can't touch that. How would you move the minus 3? Add it to both sides. Again, you have negative 1y. This cancels and equals 5. And then how do you get that y alone?
You
Divide.
By what?
Negative 1.
By negative 1. So this cancels, and I'm left with y equals negative 5. So they're all going to have that similar pattern to them. Do not give me the problem and then just say, oh, it's just negative 5, duh. Well, I can see that in my head. Do not do that. You need to show me your steps.